WWF Showdown at Shea Stadium on August 9th, 1980. I'm been watching the possibly the first full event of video, or the first full show of mostly all the matches of this third historical show that WWF put out at Shea Stadium, home of the New York Mets, New York Jets sports teams. Had an interesting commentary going on between announcer Michael Cole and legendary wrestler Mick Foley. The commentary was a lot more interesting in the first opening match. The opening first match, Angel Maravilla versus Jose Estrada. And the one thing that Mick Foley and Michael Cole point out about this opening matchup is that New York City has a large minority population. So they opened the match with two apparent Puerto Rican professional wrestlers. Jose Estrada is a longtime known jobber, talent enhancement. He was even Tito Santana and many others debut matches in the Madison Square Gardens and many others. Jose Estrada, a longtime jobber, but he has debuted matches for many superstars to come. And the one other thing that they point out, okay, the opening is Vince McMahon, the chairman, founder, of WWF. The one thing they pointed out that he is the ring announcer, and they do not tell the story how Vince McMahon became the announcer, but they tell the story that he was replacing his first employee and would become the most legendary announcer in the company's history, Howard Finkel. Howard Finkel had he was hired by Jim Crockett Promotions to work a show in Buffalo. And they were, and Michael Cole and Mick Foley were explaining that the company wasn't cooperating history with National Wrestling Alliance Jim Crockett Promotions, which is it's oddly why they would bother explain why Howard Finkel wasn't on the show, to say he wasn't on a show and he wasn't available, but they don't bother to explain how Vince McMahon became the announcer for the company. It was somewhere between 1969, early 1970s, 72, somewhere in that time period. That the story is Vince McMahon, their previous announcer, longtime announcer for Capital Sports, their original parent owner company with Vince McMahon Sr. Tootsmont. The announcer wanted more money, and Vince Sr. said, "No, I don't think so." Vince, hey Vinny, as Tito Santana once said, that the wrestlers, when Vince McMahon was very young man, he was just breaking into the company, helping his father with the company. That Vince McMahon Sr. pointed to his son. He said, "Do you want to take over announcing duties?" And he did for many years. Many years into the 90s. He was an announcer for decades. Besides Howard Finkel, probably it's where he hired somebody else to help. Vince McMahon would hire Howard Finkel to take over the announcing duties, because Vince did it for many years. Jeez, but it was the interesting story is that Michael Cole and Mick Foley would explain the story of why Howard Finkel wasn't on the show, but they didn't explain how Vince McMahon took over before Howard Finkel was hired, that he was the longtime announcer for most of the house shows, big shows. The opening match, he said it was Angel Maravilla, Jose Estrada. They shook hands, goodwill gesture as they described it, and yes, because they were Puerto Rican minorities, and both. It was a good opening match. The irony is the commentary between Michael Cole and Jose Estrada. The commentary was much more interesting to listen to than to watch the match itself. No disrespect for Angel Maravilla or Jose Estrada. It was a good opening match, just a standard singles match, and Angel Maravilla pinned Jose Estrada to win a match for the opening match here at Shea Stadium. Alright, the second match of the night, Dominic DeNucci versus Baron Mikel Cicluna. Both became Hall of Famers, and both were former tag team champions. They were Michael Cole and Mick Foley commentary. Their commentary is very, very good, very entertaining to listen to, and very historic. As many people would consider me, many people know me as an encyclopedia. They really, I don't know whether they're going by they said production notes or they themselves know the history. So the wrestler and announcer, they would know the company's history, and anybody knows me, I'm the encyclopedia, and some things I'm learning myself. Again, another match of minority but historical value. The two are former tag team champions, and Bear Mikel Cicluna, I'm learning, is from Isle of Malta or Maltese. I was looking, it was in the Mediterranean, the Middle East. Dominic DeNucci, I thought he was Canadian, and I'm mistaken. He's Italian. I apologize for that. I did not know that. I thought he was Canadian. And as the thing was, again, with the previous match was a Puerto Rican heritage, this is a mixture heritage of Italian and Malta. Again, and both are legendary wrestlers mixing it up. Before the match even started, this got interesting. How they're clipping these matches together. Over the years, it was difficult until the WWE Network even. For them to get the entire of all 13 matches, 13 matches, it was mixtures all over the internet, whether it was YouTube or the network. It was difficult to get this entire show together, and so when the video of this match opened up for Dominic DeNucci and Bear Mikel Cicluna, it was funny. Since Shea Stadium is more well known for being the New York Mets baseball team, the introduction, not audio, but the image introduction for the video is like a baseball logo, and you hear a bat hitting a ball. It was really to put over that this is taking place in Shea Stadium, more well known for the baseball sport. And then Mick Foley, he says unbelievably funny that Dominic DeNucci is a well-known trainer, and he himself, Mick Foley, was trained by Dominic DeNucci in the area of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And when Michael Cole says, "Who is Dominic DeNucci?" Well, he well known for training, and Michael and Mick Foley says he is the well-known trainer of Shane Douglas. I'm not sure it was Shane Douglas and Mick Foley. I'm not sure I don't think they started together as training. I don't remember Mick Foley stating that. I know they're just train. I don't know if they're trained at the same time or if one come after the other. But they acknowledge, yes, that Dominic DeNucci is a legendary trainer. Both were legendary tag team champions in the Hall of Fame. It was the opening matches were very short, not long time period. Most of these matches are not really long because it's a long card. 13 total matches. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page of the results. 13 matches. It's gonna be a long night, and they're very short matches. Nothing is going like 15, 20, half hour. Nothing like that. Again, a very short match, but it was very interesting to watch. Which are two legendary WWF wrestlers. Also, the one thing that I would mention that Michael Cole, Mick Foley keep mentioning the triple WWF, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Now, off the top of my head, I thought the changeover from the Worldwide Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Federation is shortening it down, taking the word wide out, and shortening it to World Wrestling Federation. I thought it was in 1979. And now I didn't look at it exactly. It was somewhere between 1979 and 1980, unless it took place in 1980. I'm pretty sure it's shortened in 1979, so they might not be accurate on a date, the exact specific date, but it's very close on when the name change was shortened. They keep repeating the Triple W, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. They keep saying WWF. I'm pretty sure this was the first major show of the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, and the match, Dominic DeNucci would defeat Bear Mikel Cicluna. It was a very interesting pinfall. Dominic DeNucci performs a sunset flip right in the middle of the ring to pin Baron, but The one interesting thing about Dominic's sunset flip is Dominic was okay. You would sit a sunset flip. You would once you flipped over your opponent, then his shoulders are down, but Dominic's shoulders his body was almost flat to the mat also, and that's an unusual sunset flip. That you are the pinner. You are pinning your opponent, and you should be in a sit-up position. No, Dominic's back was almost flat to the mat, or he was leaning back. It wasn't a full sit-up for a sunset flip. It was a very unusual thing to see in a sunset flip. But Dominic Nunzi defeats Baron Mikel Cicluna. Second match in Legendary Hall of Famers. Alright, next match of the night is WWF Junior Heavyweight Champion Tatsumi Fujinami versus Chavo Guerrero. Now, this match gets to be more interesting. It says it's more than that. It's the way the wrestling used to be. It's the build-up. The matches get better and better, and much more interesting things happen. Now, one thing that Michael Cole and Mick Foley do not point out, I'm going to point out, I'm very stunned with the McMahons. Vince McMahon Jr. or Sr., whomever was running this show. I'm shocked. Okay, for the first time of this show, third match in, that the cameras show a distant shot of the stadium, of the ring. I am shocked they did not have ringside seating for fans. Where only for the first two matches you see security, you see a ton of photographers, local and Japanese and whatever, from around the world taking photos of this match. It is only photographers and security and whatnot, officials a part of the show. There's no ringside seating. There's no fans. I am absolutely stunned. I'm pretty sure, looking at if there was magazine photos of past stadium shows, whether the previous Showdown Shea stadiums or major stadium shows that were, especially Comiskey Park, Chicago. There are major stadium shows that there was no ringside seating for the fans. I mean, if this Shea Stadium had 36,000 in the stadium, where the baseball fans would sit, that is 36,000 fans. 36,000 fans bought their tickets for this show. He could have easily had between 1 and 10,000, 1 and 5,000, 1,000, a lot more in attendance for this show. Now, I realize now it's 1980, and cable is practically brand new. Now, HBO, home box office cable channel, debuted in 1976. I'm not exactly sure when cable television, I know, started in Atlanta, Georgia, with Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1972. Now, they were Mick Foley and Michael Cole were talking about how would anybody have learned about this show? I'm not sure, depending on if WWF would have even, how they've even promoted the show on television at all, but by word of mouth, the fans, or by some kind of fan newsletter, they would have learned out that, I guess maybe the stadium talked about it. I don't know whether the local New York news talked about it. However, 36,000 fans bought tickets for this show. There's no cable. No, of course, no internet. Internet wouldn't start for about 30 more years. There's no besides the main camera on the ring itself, there's no large screens that you would later see in WrestleMania 3 in 1987. There's no large screens. So, the baseball stadium fans can see the ring, how small it is. That's why I'm very surprised that there's no ringside seating. Baseball stadium fans, they could see that small ring. I mean, you could, in the big screens at WrestleMania 3, you could see what was going on. It was huge screens. Well, because it was a dome, or there was maybe a lighting apparatus, a large structure surrounding the ring that could hold up screens, but that it wasn't even thought of yet, 1980. So I'm very shocked they didn't set up ringside seating. You could have had several thousand fans, and. Well, and this third match in, you can see with the distant camera image. I was stunned at that. Again, the third match in, again, more foreign-based wrestlers. Again, let's say superstars, but without a doubt, Tatsumi Fujinami out of Japan, of course, and Chavo Guerrero. Now they were calling Mick Foley and Michael Cole were calling him Chavo Classic, Chavo Guerrero. Now I thought that Chavo was I wasn't I think he was the older brother of Eddie Mando. Now Gory Guerrero, if anyone ever remember his name, Gory Guerrero is the father, because when I did my Facebook Hall of Fame, I put Gory Guerrero being the patriarch, the father of all the brothers. Now Chavo is apparently he is the older brother of Mando, Eddie, and Hector Guerrero. And the one thing they said, that when we were talking how the fans learned about professional wrestling, let alone they went to the show, they saw it on television, that the let alone word of mouth is the videotape trading and the magazines, the Bill Apter, what do you call it, Apter magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, many of the magazines. That's of course how I learned about many of the names, and tape trading through the fans would you would buy tapes and trade tapes, whatnot. That's how I learned that. I learned of Chavo Guerrero through when he was tag teaming with his younger brother Hector Guerrero in the Houston and the Mid-South UWF area. That's how I learned of Chavo. He was teaming up with his other brother Hector Guerrero and Eddie Guerrero. I would learn more about him in the, I think, WCW, when it became WCW in the early 90s, and he wrestled ECW at ECW in Philadelphia. I learned of Eddie Guerrero. But Chavo, I wasn't exactly sure at first how he was related. I know he was the brother, but I wasn't sure if he was the brother of Gory Guerrero. No, Gory Guerrero is the father. Chavo, Mando, Hector, Eddie were four brothers, and Chavo was the oldest brother. Okay, and the way Mick Foley was describing about Tatsumi Fujinami, and Tatsumi Fujinami was the current WWF Junior Heavyweight Champion. Vince McMahon, he announced the title as the Junior Heavyweight the Junior Heavyweight Championship of the World Wrestling Federation, something like that, instead of World Wrestling Federation Junior Champion. If I'm not mistaken, that's how he pronounced it. He changes the title name once or twice in this, in the ways that he promote the Junior Heavyweight Championship. And it was interesting how he was 219 pounds. Hearing that weight, and plus the fact that Mick Foley they were surprised at something that the fans were not used to. That way they were doing some outside ring work. They did some drop kicks and headbutts and different kind of moves. It was the first match to go outside. Now, previous match, Dominic Nucci, Baron Mikel Cicluna, that apparently they went to confront each other out on the Shea Stadium grounds, and they went to throw fists at each other, they almost a little brawl there. And apparently Pete Rose was in a baseball brawl with I didn't pick up the other second name when Pete Rose was playing. And he was in a baseball brawl, and they said Dominic Nucci, Cluno almost went to a brawl. Now Tatsumi Fujinami, Chavo Guerrero, they did a couple outside moves, which really came out of nowhere and surprising. It was something new to the fans, and a very good match, very very good match, entertaining. And this is a match where, as much as Mick Foley and Michael Cole, again, were entertaining and historically, significant to listen to about the match. And we're talking about, and Mick Foley was talking about the way how it is to work in Japan, the lifestyle in Japan. And it's very interesting. They're very very interesting to listen to. And sometimes overlap commentary. Background commentary can be boring, can be or interfering with a match. No, they're doing a very good job of commentary. But the Tatsumi Fujinami Chavo Guerrero match being they're stars. They're kind of I say foreign stars to the United States wrestlers that the wrestling fans are going to get used to, but they become legendary wrestlers. They're already top-notch stars in their own right now in 1980. It's a very, very good match to listen to watch. They shook hands. Very good match to watch. This is the matches get better and better as the night progresses. And Tatsumi Fujinami defeats Chavo Guerrero. in a very interesting pinfall that has to be seen. All right, next match of the night, legendary. You talk about legends of Japan, and Mick Foley really nailed it on the head to say that Antonio Inoki's name is so legendary. He's practically a god. He's one of the biggest, is not the biggest name, he described him as the Hulk Hogan of Japan, and without a doubt. And Antonio Inoki's, I'm just reading up on much more about Antonio Inoki than I did before. That he was a student of Ricky Dozan. Ricky Dozan was practically the invented Japan wrestling, and Mick Foley again nailed it on the head when he said that Ricky Dozan was the Babe Ruth of Japan. No, the practical inventor of Japan wrestling. This match is Antonio Inoki versus Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. This match apparently was added to this video collection of a sorts of how this whole show got together. Again, before I said that, of how the clips of these matches were very difficult to get all together for one show, and I just learned that this particular match just got uploaded to the network on January 2019. And Antonio Inoki is being labeled as the World Wrestling Federation Martial Arts Championship, and I just read it. Yes, Antonio Inoki had some input into the mixed martial arts as that system of fighting started, and Antonio Inoki is, despite he's one of the most legendary Japanese wrestlers on the planet, and let alone in Japan. He was born in Japan, yes. His real name is Kanji, Kanji, Kanji Inoki. And when I was first learned about Antonio Inoki when I was a teenage wrestling fan, I wonder, Antonio doesn't sound like a Japanese name. And when I learned doing my beginning of research into these wrestlers' real names, I learned that he took the name Antonio because he worked in Brazil, in South America, with martial arts and wrestling, and he took the name Antonio. And but in Japan, where once Ricky Dozan passed away, and there was the two of the top superstars, himself and Shohei Giant Baba, tried working together, but they split off, and Shohei Giant Baba created All Japan Pro Wrestling, and Antonio Inoki would create New Japan Pro Wrestling. And one thing about, just like with the previous one with Tatsumi Fujinami, Japanese wrestling is so huge a market, such a huge sport. It is like baseball to us, the national pastime. It is so big that they have huge stadium shows. We put over our arenas, Madison Square Gardens, Greensboro Coliseum, Atlanta Omni, they sell stadium shows 4 to 6 or more times a year, totally sold out. 30, 40, 50, 60, 100,000 in several months out of the year. That's how large Japan wrestling is. People says, I'm old school from 1986, and people call me an encyclopedia wrestling. I know my history and how big Japan wrestling is, and this is one of the most, also another interesting match, as Antonio Inoki, again, the martial arts title, and Mick Foley said that the WWE producers were trying to figure out where the martial arts title came from. They think it was a goodwill. Sometimes a wrestler was just labeled a title, and Vince McMahon, the announcer, is announcing him in the National Wrestling Federation champion. The title belt he had was the National Wrestling Federation, something I think is what they also call an outlaw promotion. It didn't get big enough for television, but it was kind of like an ECW without being noticed. The National Wrestling Federation, and I think Antonio Inoki had a title belt for that. The martial arts title. Now, I think the martial arts, besides Antonio Inoki's involvement with some kind of the mixed martial arts fighting style, the competitions, sort of like what UFC would be eventually become, would get started. And there was and the way he learned his Brazilian name Antonio, It was a Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, a Brazilian fighting star, mixed martial arts fighter, Royce Gracie. The Gracie family founded the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So this martial arts thing is also a martial arts thing that got my attention. That they also talked to Antonio Inoki's well known in the New York market for the previous showdown at Shea Stadium in June 1976 against when Antonio Inoki took on Muhammad Ali in the wrestler versus boxing match, and that got major press, major news. And it was like 1 or 2 years ago, I finally took a look at this match. And I said, what was the big deal of it? It was not a big deal. It got a lot of press, but it was a very disappointing match. Antonio Inoki spent probably 70% of the match on his back kicking Muhammad Ali's legs. I said, what? WTF? What the hell? What was it? He was trying to take out the legs, literally, physically, of Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali is the legendary boxer. And he was trying to take out, there's no way Antonio Inoki, he could out wrestle him, but outbox him? No. So he was kicking the total hell out of Ali. And I never heard this before. Michael Cole says that the match between Inoki and Ali, that apparently led to Ali's eventual and physical downfall as a boxer, that he suffered blood clots from the constant kicking that Inoki did to him. If that were true, and if that were true, I don't know if it's speculation or if it's actually true. Why didn't Ali sue him? I know it's just an interesting statement that Michael Cole says about that, about the constant kicking that Inoki did on Ali. Now he takes on Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. Now, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp out of Paulsboro, New Jersey. He's been a long time so-so wrestler, but he's more well known. Larry Sharp goes on to become and they acknowledge it. Michael Cole McFoley acknowledged it. He becomes a well-known trainer out of New Jersey. He opens up what's called he calls a Monster Factory, and many names came out of that Monster Factory, especially Superstar, a very heavy superstar, which I so much admired. Fantastic wrestler, for a man who, with his weight, he moved around like a junior heavyweight. Bam Bam Bigelow. And in one of the a notable interview, Bam Bam Bigelow says, they ask him what happened between you and Larry Sharp, and Larry Sharp says, "Oh, he wanted to know. I became his big superstar, and he started wanting more money out of me, a percentage out of my matches, and says you can go to hell." It sounds very much similar to what Fabulous Moolah did to the women wrestlers. There was a lot. Moolah did a lot really strange, really disturbing things with the women wrestlers, but she also wanted a percentage out of their box office, how much money they made at the ticket sales. And that's what Bam Bam Bigelow explains about Larry Sharp. But Larry Sharp was a good wrestler in his own right. He really early on took it to Antonio Inoki. At times he held him in the move, and Mick Foley saying, "Man, what kind of a move?" He's holding them Antonio Inoki down as big as a superstar and a legendary wrestler, a legendary godlike wrestler that the Inoki name is in the United States and Japan. Larry Sharp was really doing some interesting holds on Antonio Inoki in the first part of the match, but Antonio Inoki, Larry Sharp was no match for the legendary Antonio Inoki. He did some interesting, Antonio Inoki did some really interesting, good knife-edge chops, laying out Larry Sharp. And the most interesting moment is Antonio Inoki's known for a back head flying kick, sort of like a spinning kick back of Larry Sharp's head, and Larry Sharp kicked out of it, but then Inoki did a second kick to the head and quickly pinned Larry Sharp, and then Antonio Inoki defeats Larry Sharp in this next match of the night. But I tell you, Mick Foley and Michael Cole, they really are doing a fantastic job of historical value, and at times they're going more about their color commentary about the match, and Mick Foley's, they did their homework about the two wrestlers. And I'll give them credit for I'll give them credit. Oh, there's one thing I also wanted to bring up. I didn't want to forget about. They said, yes, the Antonio Inoki Muhammad Ali match was shown close. They said it was shown closed circuit. I heard about that in the June 1976 second Showdown Shea Stadium show. Now, closed circuit screens. I said previously when I saw the long shot of Tatsumi Fujinami Chavo Guerrero match, you can see a distant shot of there's no ringside seating. So how do they set up the screens? I guess some kind of rigging structure to hold up. We've never yet seen screens, large screens to show the closed circuit of Inoki and Muhammad Ali match. We've seen the match itself, so I'm curious what the rigging apparatus for a closed circuit would have been, of how the fans in the second Showdown Shea Stadium June 76, how they would have seen that Inoki Ali match. But in this one, it's Inoki returns and defeats Pretty Barry Larry Sharp. Okay, next match of the night, the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Wild Samoans Alpha and Sika, with manager Captain Lou Albano. They take on WWF World Champion Bob Backlund and Pedro Morales. Okay, now again, Michael Cole and Mick Foley do great commentary, and they're going to point out something very interesting that kind of stunned me in Vince McMahon announcing this match, because it's 2 out of 3 falls, and apparently Vince McMahon messes up that announcement. But they do Michael and Mick talk a lot about the Wild Samoan history and their wrestling school in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and that the problem with Bob Backlund, he was a kind of a second generation or second coming of they wanted another version of Bruno Sammartino after his 7.5-year run, and Bob Backlund has a 5.5-year run. And yes, the problem with Bob Backlund, he was the All-American boy. He was a fantastic amateur collegiate wrestler. The problem is he couldn't speak for crap. He couldn't speak at all. That's one thing. I think I would always blame and say Bob. I have no disrespect for Bob Backlund whatsoever, but I think it's because of Bob Backlund not being a speaker, and he's representing the company as the world champion. He can't speak for himself. That's why he had Arnold Skolin. I really never heard Arnold Skolin speak in any. I never really paid attention to Bob Backlund matches and videotapes. But Backlund couldn't speak at all, hardly. He was very light spoken and not supposed to be, like I was saying, flamboyant, but put himself over, put the next match over, and he couldn't speak at all. That's maybe why the company went with people that could speak flamboyant or somewhat to be a champion. And teaming up with the biggest Puerto Rican sensation in the company and state of New York, Pedro Morales. One thing they point out that Pedro Morales is going to be the first Triple Crown champion. But Lou Albano, as wild as he is, one thing they pointed out, and Michael and Mick pointed out in this match, Lou Albano is so blatant on his interference. The referee, Lou Albano did not bother to hide the fact he's hitting, punching back on punching Morales, interfering in the match. Eventually, the New York police escort Lou Albano away, and you could see one of the cops laughing, like it's part of it. But Lou Albano, he's starting to gain weight. He was thin when he was a wrestler back in the 60s, and he's slightly starting to gain weight. And one thing that Lou Albano is known for, he's one of the first managers I ever encountered and watched as a fan when I first started. He was also called the Guiding Light. He managed a dozen tag team champions, so many tag team champions. I remember when he debuted, he came with the British Bulldogs. But this 2 out of 3 falls match was pretty good. Ironically enough, that Michael Cole I keep putting over Michael Cole McFoley as a commentary team, and no, you're not there. They're not there, of course, but they're doing they did a commentary like much later on. Apparently, they when they're taping, they're doing this commentary work. It's in 2008. And in the past matches that I talked about in this show, they said 44th anniversary. Now it's now August 11th, 2020, and it's 2 days ago, August 9th, 2020 was the 40th anniversary, but their commentary, they dated as 2008. That would be, less than 30 years. 28 years, if I'm not mistaken. I'm very bad at math. But that I'm doing this review of this show. It's now August 11th, 2020, and 2 days ago was August 9th. It'd be the 40th anniversary, the actual 40th anniversary. And they kept repeating 44th. No, at one time they said it 44th. But with the Wild Samoans, yeah, the cameras do a good close-up shots of the Wild Samoans, their big afro hairdo, and the close-up shots of their eyes. They call the Wild-Out Samoan. They were crazy, yes. They were the original Samoan. They were so many generations of Samoan wrestlers, and their sister married Rocky Johnson, they had eventually Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and there's Umaga. There's so many Samoan wrestlers. I couldn't name them all. There's so many Samoan wrestlers that came about from the Wild Samoans. There's so many family wrestling teams. It's not even funny. But here's where when the first fall occurs, then the first fall occurs. Pedro Morales rolls up one of the Wild Samoans. They look so much alike you couldn't tell between Afa and Sika. That's how identical they looked. But Pedro Morales rolls up one of the Samoans. Pedro Morales rolls up one of the Samoans, and he gets the pin. Now, this I'm curious. How did they notice if they didn't? It seems like they're watching this show for the first time. McFall and Michael Cole. I can't believe I just said that. Michael Cole McFoley, and they're doing a pretty good job. And it seems like they watched. It may seem they apparently proved they watched this show or watched this particular match because they're doing such a good job. They seem like they haven't seen the show before. However, they are going to point out that Vince McMahon, who's doing the announcing, the ring announcing, forgets or didn't realize that this is a 2 out of 3 falls. So, the unfortunate thing about Michael Cole McFoley, when they say that Vince McMahon does a big error, I'm listening for it, but they're talking over Vince McMahon when he makes the announcement. I think Vince was going to say the winners. So, then the referee tells Vince, you can actually see it, the referee tells Vince, he puts 2 fingers up, it's 2 out of 3 falls. Vince McMahon says, oh, I'm informed by the referee it is actually 2 out of 3 falls. Then, this gets better. You swear it's piped in by a video production. No, but being a New York City crowd, you could believe it. Because the fans believe that Backlund and Morales have won the titles from Wild Samoans, that then Vince and the referee say it's 2 out of 3 falls. The Shea Stadium crowd actually starts yelling out loud. You can hear it loud and clear. Bullshit over and over and over. You wouldn't think that WWE would pipe that kind of language into a video production, but it's got to be the Shea Stadium crowd saying that. For 1980, wow, that sounds like more of a mid to late 80s, out of the Carolinas. Or a live Monday Night Raw broadcast, you would hear a crowd yelling with foul language. But 1980, wow. But then the more the Wild Samoans really take it to Morales and Backlund, they have to get into the fall to tie it up. No, but Lou Albano is interfering so much. I said it before that the New York City police escort that gets a big pop in the crowd. That New York City's police, Michael and Mick actually say they say that armed forces are leading Albano away. No, they are armed and they are a force. That's what the commentary says. I'm like, that was so funny. But the New York City police lead Lou Albano away, and eventually, one of the Wild Samoans has Bob Backlund getting ready for an airplane spin or some kind of drop that he has Backlund over top of his back. Pedro Morales walks up and does a standing drop kick, knocking the Wild Samoan down, and Backlund actually falls on top of Wild Samoan and the 3 count. And Bob Backlund, World Wrestling Federation champion, and Pedro Morales are the new WWF Tag Team champions. Here is the bigger error. Let alone when Vince McMahon apparently announces he thinks it was one fall, and he's going to announce some new Tag Team champions. Vince McMahon's going to announce the new Tag Team champions, Backlund and Morales. Now here's where history is a huge error. Michael Cole and Mick Foley do say that Backlund and Morales are stripped of the tag team titles because WWE doesn't allow the world champion to hold both belts. What was the point of a title match then? And I think everybody who's ever seen this match or knows history, what was the point of having a title match if Backlund is world champion? And now they're going to not going to strip Backlund of the title. They're going to strip Backlund and Morales of the tag team titles. Then history records say they have a tag team tournament. The Wild Samoans win it to regain the titles. Okay, that's total no logic. What was the point of having Backlund and Morales win the titles? And I'm saying this for the 3rd time. What was the point of having them win the titles when Backlund's a champion, and then strip them the titles, and Samoans will win it in a tournament? Okay, fairly good match. This match has got the best screw-ups, Vince McMahon and the title history. But Backlund and Pedro Morales, the new tag team champions, defeating the Wild Samoans 2 out of 3 falls. But according to Vince, it was 1 fall, where he had to be corrected. Alright, the next match of night, pretty quickly actually. Curious why it's so quickly, but Pat Patterson, who is the former Intercontinental Champion, the first Intercontinental Champion, he takes on a kind of a legendary Japanese wrestler, Toru Kamada. And he looks, I've heard the name, I've never really seen him before, heard the name very, very many times. He looks a lot like Professor Toru Tanaka to me. Pat Patterson, he legendary known as a French Canadian. He's a brawler in his own right. He can brawl. That's why he was chosen to be Intercontinental Champion. He's a good wrestler, brawler. I know he worked a lot in San Francisco with Ray Stevens, another legendary wrestler. They were a legendary tag team. Pat Patterson, it was Toru Kamada jumped Pat Patterson, and then also the referee that gets involved in this in a second, a very young Dick Kroll. And I know that, I know many referee names. Dick Kroll, he did a lot of many WWF shows over the years. A very young Dick Kroll in this show. And Toru Kamada, he's in the corner. This match ended so quickly. Toru Kamada, I thought I was seeing like a dirt pickup, like a cloud of dirt in the infield. There's some people, these people, officials and photographers, and one guy's on the ground looking into a bag, but I'm thinking there's like a dust pickup in the infield. What is that? No, it was Toru Kamada. He had a little bag, and it's either powder, salt, whatnot. Japanese, Mr. Fuji's well known for using that, the salt, and he would teach Yokozuna to use that in the 90s. Toru Kamada, he opens his little bag, and eventually when Pat Patterson gets close enough that he throws the bag into Pat Patterson's face, but Patterson kind of evades it, but referee Dick Kroll, he got a good stream of this powder right in his face, and then here again, Michael Cole and Mick Foley in commentary say that that's gonna push for the disqualification. So they already know they've already seen this. That's curious. They knew about Vince McMahon's comment announcing error. Then they knew about the referee disqualification. It's curious. They already know this. They watch this. Then they do the commentary. That's curious. But yes, it's definitely the Pat Patterson at one point goes to cover Torquemada to pin him. And the referee doesn't count. Then Patterson gets up, and the referee raises Patterson's hand up. He has disqualified Torquemada for the powder because the referee himself got hit by it. So Pat Patterson won by disqualification. A very quick match. Next match tonight is women's tag team match, and it's the legendary Fabulous Moolah with. Now, I wasn't sure if I know the others because the names I didn't recognize, but the one particular I did recognize, and Mick Foley confirmed it for me. It's Fabulous Moolah teamed with Beverly Slade versus Candy Malloy and Peggy Lee. Now, Peggy Lee's name was shortened, and it's when Mick Foley realized it was Peggy Lee Leather. I do recognize that name from reading from the magazines. Fabulous Moolah, I'm curious, being the longest reigning WWF Women's Champion. She's not wearing her coveted women's title belt in for a tag match. I'm very surprised. The also surprising statement that they say about Moolah is they go over Moolah's history, how she got started, how long she was champion. They also say how nice of a woman she was, not according to current history. And anybody's watched the first episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Ooh, Moolah has a very dark history with the women's wrestlers, and they said that she was in control of all of them. The one woman wrestler, she was announced from Greenville, South Carolina, and that's where Moolah had her training camp. You know, they all living in cabins when she was doing her training of these women wrestlers. So it's obvious she trained probably countless, if not all of them, in Greenville, South Carolina. Now, the one thing I respect so much about women's tag team wrestling, compared to where it went into the '90s and into the 2000s, that even today, even this match, they call them the comparison of then in 1980 to now, the Diva. I never. If there were the women wrestlers in the past 20 years, I would pick probably 1 out of 20 that I would bother even watching. It's today the way they showed themselves off, the way they promoted, the way the wrestling promotion TNA. You really want me to spell it what TNA stands for? You all know what that means. I don't mean the wrestling promotion. I don't care for the way, even with movies and television, I didn't care for the way women's wrestling turned into a sex show. The way they showed themselves off, the way they were, their character, the way they were dressed. The one thing I really enjoyed that I think it was Mick Foley said that the women's wrestlers were dressed in like a one-piece bathing suit. Their entire body was completely covered, and they were wrestling. That's how much I respect women's wrestling in the 1980s. It's an enjoyable match to watch for a tag team, but of course, Fabulous Moolah. Does Moolah ever lose? She only lost once or twice in her whole life to Wendy Richter and Sherry Martel. But her and her tag team partner Beverly Slade would defeat Candy Malloy and Peggy Lee. Moolah would pin Peggy Lee Leather. I never, except for maybe, I only ever watched women's tag team in the mid to late 80s. It was the Jumping Bomb Angels against Judy Martin and Lonnie Kai, if I'm not mistaken. Still in the 1980s, women's wrestlers were so respectable to watch, and this match also respectable to watch. But as much as Fabulous Moolah was the most legendary women wrestler of all time, current news and current documentaries, current history is giving her a black eye, giving her a dark image. Maybe it's true of the women wrestlers that talk about how Moolah trained them. and especially how when they do, Mick Foley does explain the original screw job where Moolah dressed with a mask as a spider regained the title from Wendy Richter, and Wendy Richter quickly quit because Moolah pinned Richter. It wasn't planned. The referee was in on it. Wendy, hate to disrespect the legend, but apparently Moolah it turns out to be an absolute bitch. And she controlled women's wrestling, and that was an understatement. But it was for what it was an enjoyable tag team match. The only person you really recognize is Fabulous Moolah. I don't recognize the others other than Peggy Lee Leather, but Moolah pinned Peggy Lee to win this tag team match. And it's Moolah and Beverly Slade defeat Candy Malloy and Peggy Lee. Okay, the next match tonight, apparently the video of one particular match is missing. The next match would have been, after the women's tag team match, would have been AWA second generation wrestler Greg Gagne. He would wrestle Rick McGraw, and according to Wikipedia, it's in the time of their match is nearly 15 minutes. And that match, I just recently saw somebody has a photo of that match because of a stadium background. So apparently, it's missing from the video history of how this show was put together. The amount of matches, like I said, the collection of matches, whether it was on YouTube or the WWE Network, this match is missing. And so we go to the next match is going to be Mr. USA Tony Atlas will face WWF Intercontinental Champion Ken Patera. Oh, a lot got said. A lot of things happened in this match. Ken Patera is managed by the Hall of Famer, the Grand Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard. And I never really got to see any Ernie Roth talk and really put his heel wrestlers over himself. The way he talked about on television, it was before my time. I didn't start till 1986, so I never got to see the Grand Wizard talk. I heard a lot about him, and his interesting outfit, his hat, the sunglasses. He had a very interesting outfit. Now both wrestlers have bodybuilding careers. Now Tony Atlas, he goes by the nickname Mr. USA, and that he's had that bodybuilding name, Mr. USA. He's a three-time Mr. USA bodybuilding champion or competitor. Ken Patera, as Mick Foley reminded me of, he competed in the 1972 Olympics in Munich, Germany. And in weightlifting competitions, both wrestlers are very big when it comes to the bodybuilding their physique. And the one thing that Tony Atlas showed shades of is he put his hand to his ear. He cupped his ear, like listening for the crowd reaction. The way Hulk Hogan, he was like a vague Hulk Hogan precursor, despite the fact Hulk Hogan will be on this show as a heel, though. This goes a really good back and forth. As I said, the type of shows that WWE had way back, it was a momentum build from the undercard minor, and it gets more and more into the bigger stars. And the one thing I found kind of strange, though, Ken Patera, he looked like he had a haircut, because I know he would have that flowing blonde or whitish curly hair. Dusty Rhodes had the same cut. Dusty Rhodes early in his career had that kind of curly blondish hair. And Ken Patera, I remember him a lot from having that curly hair. And he kind of had a haircut. And also, he had a white strapped Intercontinental title belt. Tell you one thing, Ken Patera really sold as Tony Atlas. He really, they beat the crap out of each other. It was a really good, competitive, athletic, their bodybuilding apparatus. They both did a press slam on each other. It was a great match. As the show gets better and better, and who winning against two was a well put together show. And eventually, both guys go to pound each other outside the ring. Now, what just gets strange is how it comes to an end. They're fighting outside the ring, and as Tony Atlas approaches the ring, referee Billy Caputo, if I'm saying that, it's Billy or Joe Caputo, Billy Caputo. You don't even see he's counting. At times you don't see his arms counting. He's counting both men out. But when Tony Atlas re-enters the ring, Ken Patera slowly gets to enters, and you can see his way. He's telling, I think he's trying to tell Ken Patera, you're counted out. But Ken Patera, he was on the ring. He was on the apron on the edge of the ring. Then when he enters, the referee apparently had still counted Ken Patera out, even though Tony Atlas was just entering the ring, and Ken Patera was on the ring apron, on the edge of the ring, and then got into the ring. Apparently, the referee counts out Ken Patera, despite the fact both wrestlers are at the edge, sitting on the ring edge. It was a strange count out, but Tony Atlas has won the match by count out, but Ken Patera remains Intercontinental Champion. Alright, next match of the night here at Shea Stadium is Polish Power, Ivan Putski versus the unpredictable Johnny Rodz. Now, my late father, one of his all-time favorite WWF superstars was Polish Power Ivan Putski next to Chief Jay Strongbow. One thing that New York City is so well known for, and Michael Cole McFoley kept repeating, is New York City is the port of the world. All ethnicities, all the nationalities of the world can be found in New York City. And this match, again, among many matches, is all ethnicities. And Polish Power Ivan Putski, and he takes on the unpredictable Johnny Rodz. And both in the early Hall of Famers, the 94 through 1996 Hall of Fame inductions, the two of them were inducted. The one thing about Johnny Rodz, similar to Jose Estrada, you can call them jobbers and talent enhancements, but they are also trainers. They had their own schools to train the upcoming superstars. And as Mick Foley would point out, that Johnny Rodz is instrumental in teaching ECW stars Taz and Tommy Dreamer. Also, Mick Foley also went to be trained by Johnny Rodz' school to get some work, and Johnny Rodz was a well-connected trainer to other wrestling promoters. But Ivan Putski, Polish Power Ivan Putski, very muscular wrestler. He does a lot of bear hugs on Johnny Rodz. He also did. This is the first time I ever see him do the Polish Hammer. He does this double-handed over the back of Johnny Rodz. He does this over and over, swinging his arms over top of it's like a pounding, both arms pounding on the back of Johnny Rodz, and whipped in the ropes, and does his Polish Power, which is like a double. Both hands like a double hammered onto the chest of Johnny Rodz, and quickly does the pin at 4 minutes, pinning Johnny Rodz. It's actually the first time I've ever actually seen him do the Polish Hammer. Ivan Putski is before my time, the 70s and 80s, but it was a quick match. But one thing I point out, that I've never seen Ivan Putski do the Polish Power, the Polish Hammer, and this show is a great lineup so far, and it's definitely what's called port of the world. All the ethnicities, all the nationalities of New York City are definitely on this show. Next match of the night, just before we get to the two main events of Showdown Shea Stadium 1980, is another ethnicity nationality match. There's a lot of different nationalities on this whole card. Is Rene Goulet versus the Hangman, and it's ironically funny that I did a little bit more research on who the Hangman was compared to Michael Cole and Mick Foley. They did not get information who the Hangman was. Mick Foley actually asked, who is his Hangman? And Michael Cole did not come up with it. I did did do some research on who this is, and they're both from Canada. Rene Goulet, no, it's known for a French-based wrestler, and he was former tag team champions with Karl Gotch. I have to really do more research on who Karl Gotch, but it was apparently a legendary wrestler. Rene Goulet and Karl Gotch were very early Worldwide Wrestling Federation tag team champions. Now the Hangman, I did some quick research, and his real name is Neil, and I'm not gonna do justice on his last name, spelled Guay, Guay or Guay. I apologize if I've got that name wrong. His first name is Neil, and it's either Guay or Guay or Guay. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right. He is out of Matane, Quebec, Canada, and he's gone by several in Quebec. He's gone by several alter egos: Quebec Lumberjack, the Hangman, Jean Louis, many different many wrestlers have gone through different names over the years. And I had to quickly look up who he was, and he was actually Canadian, just as Rene Goulet. He's Quebec. This wrestler's French out of Quebec, Canada, just like Rene Goulet is French Canadian also. But the strange part about this match, it should have been very early in the show. It went 8 minutes, and it's one of the longest matches of the night. And even Michael and Mick said his match is almost putting the Shea Stadium crowd to sleep. Michael and Mick were commentating a lot different. They're talking a lot about different things other than the match itself. Let's pay attention. Let's pay attention to this match. But it was 8 minutes. You would think is not much, but this is one of the longest matches of the night, except for the match that's not seen, Green Gagnon versus Rick McGraw, which was about 14 minutes long, and only a photo of that match exists. But this match, this entire card is a lot of ethnicity, nationalities. It's very different from what the future of this company would become, rather than big, huge superstars. Where it's the show and the company were combining of different nationalities, African American and French Canadian and Puerto Rican, and it's all kinds of nationalities because it's New York City. It's a port of the world. All nationalities were from New York City. But the ending of the match, it's typically the highlight of the match is how the match ends, and the Hangman he power pressed Rene Goulet and then dropped him, and then he power pressed him and then dropped him. He dropped Rene Goulet his arms and threw it over the top rope, and Rene Goulet went down, and Hangman covered him for the pin. 8 minutes and 1 second. Okay, the next match of the night is the kind of what you call a semi-main event. Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. They probably the first major encounter between the two, and Hulk Hogan is a heel, and not the NWO heel. It is when he is the original heel. Back in 1980, he had debuted in the WWF in December of '79 in Madison Square Garden, as Mick Foley and Michael Cole would bring up. And this is the first major encounter. It's 7 years before their WrestleMania 3 encounter. Now, I wanted to pay attention to this match much more than listening to Michael and Mick commentate. And they were trying to wear each other down and size each other up. Hulk Hogan still you think... One thing that's definitely noticeable is how much hair both had. Andre's hair Andre had a lot of hair at the time period, and I know it's somewhere around 83, 84, something like that. He got double or triple teamed by Bobby the Brain Heenan's men, Ken Patera, Big John Studd, and they would cut his hair. I didn't like that angle at all. I remember some tapes of it, and I don't like when he cut his hair. I like when Andre had a lot of hair. And Hulk Hogan very young wrestler at the time. Young wrestler at the time. He had a lot of long blonde hair. It's very interesting to see both men with hair, and still you see the size of Andre. You see the size of Hulk Hogan. It's Hogan being managed by classy Freddie Blassie. Mick Foley kept saying the Hollywood Flash and Play. I never liked that title by Fred Blassie. And Fred Blassie is a legendary heel, wrestler, heel manager, and he was the original manager of Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan always came in with a gold-colored cape, and he was originally called the. I'm not sure they didn't call it. Now, when Vince McMahon announced him, it was Hulk Hogan. I know in '83, '84 when he returned, I'm not sure if he was in the during the AWA years or when he returned to WWF in '83, '84, late '83 into '84. He would be later named the Incredible Hulk Hogan. And now I think they had to drop that part because of the Marvel Hulk name, the Marvel comic character name. But Hogan would eventually purchase his name. He actually paid Marvel to keep the Hulk Hogan name. Anyway, I was trying to pay attention to the Hogan and Andre match, and they were wearing each other down. Andre the mega popular one, and Hulk Hogan the heel. But they were in arm bars and side headlocks. They were trying to wear each other down, size each other up. And then, but in the midst of the match, they always kept saying how 7 years later, in 1987, where in the WrestleMania 3 match, Hulk Hogan performed the body slam heard around the world. Well, Andre, one thing that it's known that WWF is known for is unless it was on television, it never happened. Well, if you were at some territory matches or in the very early WWF match shows, Andre has been slammed before, and this match is no exception. Hogan did slam Andre, and then Andre returned the favor and slammed him twice. Now, the original referee, got clobbered. But the thing is, the question is whether then they brought a stretcher. When the match ended, they brought a stretcher out. They said I couldn't see. They said the referee was busted open. He was cut or something. I didn't notice that. I know the referee was down. Okay, so you're talking Hogan and Andre, they're huge guys, and the referee was a very short, small guy. Andre, a second referee came in. Andre does a body slam on Hogan. Then he goes to cover him. A second referee comes in. It looked to me like a very fast count because I watched Hogan. I replayed the pinfall on this, the ending of this. I had to rerun this myself. The second referee, without a doubt, with a fast count. It's nothing but an angle. But the referee did do a fast count, and the question. I don't think it was intentional, like planned to be a fast count, but Hogan did kick out before the referee counted to 3. And they said Hogan would have a beef about that. Hogan didn't protest. It looked to me like a 2 count. Michael Cole, Mick Foley said Mick Foley says a 1.5 count. I counted at least 2, but Hogan did kick out. Hogan has that problem in his his future. After his Hulkamania days, being pinned by anybody, and I bitched about that for many videos. Hogan has a problem of being pinned, even in this 1980 match with Andre. I mean, I thought he had a problem with the 1988 match, the February 1988 match. He has a problem with this match, 1980. Hogan has a problem being pinned. I can review matches where Hogan is actually pinned. But this was a disturbing match ending where that the TV taping show that Fred Blassie has somebody that could take Andre at his own size. Hogan is a pretty big guy. I'm not exactly sure his height. Over 6 foot without a doubt. And Andre at 7'5", 500 pounds. But I know they have such a showdown that it's in a sense, Andre breaking him in where WrestleMania 3 was passing the torch. This match is Andre breaking Hulk Hogan in. That he's bringing him in. No, he's the heel and Andre is the babyface. But the ending of this match is disturbing, and now I can see why it's disturbing, because Hulk Hogan still has a problem. It's very. I question what was with the second referee's fast count, whether it was planned or not planned. I question it, because Hogan, without a doubt, kicked out at 2, where Mick Foley said he kicked out 1.5. But Andre should have got the pin. But apparently Andre wins the match, where the referee makes an apparent 3 count, but a fast 3 count. Okay, the main event, Bruno Sammartino versus Larry Zbyszko in a steel cage. This was actually probably the original, possibly the first teacher versus student, mentor-student match. A very young Larry Zbyszko. I'd have to take a look at the TV tapings of how this took place. I've seen a clip of it that it possibly was Larry Zbyszko wanting to break away out of the shadow of the teacher. It happens many times. I'd have to take a look at the TV tapings of what exactly happened, but I know the famous incident is that Larry Zbyszko took a wooden chair and beat the hell out of Bruno in the middle of a TV taping and bloodied Bruno. This led to the steel cage match. The disappointing thing about this match, not the match itself, is how it began. Of course, most shows that have a steel cage match don't see the steel cage being assembled. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. This one did not. However, what's more disappointing is Larry Zbyszko and Bruno. Their approaches are not. There's no announcements. Neither wrestlers are shown into the steel cage ring. But Larry Zbyszko was already in first. Bruno entered second. As soon as Bruno entered, it was a brawl. No wrestling match. No. It's many times a steel cage match, or many times they say this match is going to be a brawl. There's got no wrist locks, or arm locks, arm bars, nothing like that. They just threw each other. They threw each other down like a rag doll, beat the hell out of each other. Back and forth. Larry had his time. Bruno had his time. Back and forth, back and forth. It was teacher against student. They beat the living hell out of each other. At times it looked like it wasn't more head clobbering, where Larry Zbyszko was pounding and smacking and beating Bruno's arm. Bruno's arm was bleeding. Now that's a rarity in all wrestling history, whether it's steel cage or a regular match. It's rare to see a wrestler's arm bleeding. Typically, it's always the head. Now, Larry Zbyszko eventually, I think, toward the ending of the match, Larry's head was bleeding. Also, was more different is Larry Zbyszko, a very, very young Larry Zbyszko. He's kind of blondish hair. I think he changes his hair color later on. I know Larry Zbyszko was a tag team champion with Tony Gurria, if not mistaken, somewhere in the early 80s. I'm not sure if Larry Zbyszko went from heel, following the heel turn he had on Bruno, if he was face. I have to look up the history. That he was faced with Tony Gurria's tag team champions, or was after this match. I didn't look up that part. But one thing notable about Larry Zbyszko's heel run, if I'm not mistaken, and Larry spent most of his time in the AWA, American Wrestling Association, majority of his career, but he was all over the place. His heel run was one of the longest heel runs ever. You know, a lot of wrestlers out there, like Tully Blanchard, there's a lot of them that stay heel their entire career. Larry's heel turn with Bruno, if I'm not mistaken, lasts all the way somewhere into the mid to late 1990s. And he does not have a babyface turn until the crowd in the arena, so pissed off with the New World Order wrestlers that the members of the NWO and WCW got fed up with how much control the wrestlers are doing and messing with the announcers, and Larry Zbyszko was one of the announcers. Finally, Larry got fed up with the interference against the announcers, that the entire arena saw a roar of Larry. Then he does a babyface turn, and Larry starts arguing and fighting back with the members of the NWO. Yeah, you're talking 1980 all the way to the late 1990s when that occurred. That's a long heel. That's a long heel run. But I said many wrestlers who were heels have stayed heels during their careers. But this match is a brawl, back and forth. You know, Bruno is definitely in his twilight years. He looks pretty good. You know, it's not like he's outlived his career. No, outlived himself. Like, he's always going to be the living legend. He looks really, really good. Even when he has Hall of Fame induction, he looked really good. He's not like so aged like he doesn't know. It's so no. There's a lot of wrestlers that many would say you've gotten so old you don't belong in the ring. In a way that would be very insulting for any wrestler, heel or babyface, to say you look so old you don't belong. I never want to say that. But for Bruno Sammartino, who was champion in 1963, and 7.5, 8 year run as world champion, and he takes on this young man, Larry Zbyszko. Larry gets fed up with being under the shadow of Bruno, and this night Bruno is in his twilight years now. It's 1980, and no matter the twilight years, no matter how old Bruno would get, this man would be popular you talk about, one of the most. He's a man who is also a baby faced from beginning to end. Bruno Sammartino, without a doubt, would be he carried as Michael. One thing that Mick Foley and Michael Cole said that, and I said this also in previous videos. It's known fact that Bruno Sammartino, as world champion, carried the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and the World Wrestling Federation on his back. He had an argument with Vince McMahon. What they say? What was the argument? What was the downfall? What was the breakup? It was because the company's direction. Bruno did not like. Bruno wanted it the way, wrestling, like any other, whether it's entertainment or in a sport, things change over time, and Bruno could not Bruno did not want to accept change, whether it be wrestler characters, whether it be animals being involved, whether it be sexual material, whether it be foul language material. Bruno did not like the change. I myself agree with Bruno. So there's some things that should not have changed. Sometimes wrestling has to use that material to survive. It goes with the times. Things change over time, and I agree with Bruno. But things that wrestling need, just like wrestling, like any wrestling promotion or anything that's entertainment, whether it's movies or television or sports, things change over time. You got to go with the times, and material changes. And Bruno didn't like that. I think that's why there was a big downfall, a big breakup. Why he was a much later induction. He didn't get the very early induction into the Hall of Fame. But this match, teacher against student, and it's a brawl, beating living the hell out of each other. And Bruno, finally he has Larry Zbyszko in a corner and kicking the living hell out of him, and he finally walks out. It's leave the steel cage. That's how I would describe leaving the steel cage. The WWF always had this. If they ever had a pinfall in a cage, I think it would have been very rare, because WWF always had the steel cage where you climb out over the top of the cage or go through the door. This is no exception. Bruno, with the massive 36,000 in Shea Stadium, cheered him on as Bruno left the cage, defeating Larry Zbyszko. Now, the one strange thing is, Larry said, Larry Zbyszko was acting like, he kept pointing at Bruno, hey, I'm not done with you. But as Larry left the steel cage and Bruno goes to confront him, it says, "You think we're gonna still continue this?" As they walk up closer and closer to each other, it almost seems they're going to start throwing punches. Larry instead raises Bruno's arm up. Okay, you beat me. Plain and simple. And they walk away from each other. Bruno Sammartino ends the showdown Shea Stadium, defeating Larry Zbyszko in the steel cage revenge match.